Barbara asked me to give a little intro today, so I thought since Bates is in the Tacoma Power service territory, I'd tell you a little bit about Tacoma Power, and then I'd tell you a little bit about my role on the Center of Excellence Board, and just a little primer on what in the heck Centers of Excellence are. So with that, that's me. I'm Pat McCarty, Generation Manager for Tacoma Power. I'm also wearing the other hat of Chair of the Advisory Board for the Center of Excellence for Clean Energy. So now, Tacoma Power, what are they? We are a municipal electric utility. So we are owned by the City of Tacoma, and we serve the City of Tacoma and its surrounds. So we not only provide electrical service, but we also have a telecommunications arm. It's called Click Network. We serve the City of Tacoma proper and about 180 square miles total, with about 350,000 residents, and about half of those are in Tacoma. And then we also serve Joint Base Lewis-McChord, and the number of people there kind of goes up and down, depending on what the president wants to do. So the number of utilities in Pierce County is 12. We lost the city of Fircrest. They used to be an electric provider, but Tacoma Power now serves those. And you'll see even Lewis County PUD serves in Pierce County. They've got little stragglers down at the end. So my role is to manage our hydroelectric projects. We have 7 dams and 8 powerhouses on 4 different river systems. Down south, we have the Cowlitz project, and it's Mayfield and Mossy Rock, and I think that's the reason why I was asked to be on the board for the advisory board for the Center of Excellence in the first place. Then we have 2 on the Nisqually River, Alder and LeGrand dams, 2 up on the North Fork of the Skokomish River, Cushman number 1 and number 2 dams, and then the Wainuchi project way up in Grays Harbor County. So we take our role of environmental stewardship very seriously. We have 2 of what used to be the largest hatcheries in the world down on the Cowlitz River, the Cowlitz Salmon Hatchery and Trout Hatchery, and we produce about 10 million steelhead, salmon, and cutthroat trout every year. And then we also fund a couple of hatcheries like the George Adams Hatchery down on the Skokomish River, the Nisqually Tribal Hatchery on the Nisqually River, and we pay them about $1 million a year to keep those going. And then we just spent about $50 million up at Cushman to build 2 new hatcheries and an upstream and downstream fish passage system. And right now we have cut a couple of large holes in Lewis County PUD's Cowlitz Falls Dam, and we're installing a $35 million fish collector up there. So one of the holes is to collect the fish in with pumped water, and the other hole, which is these holes are big, like 25 feet wide, 15 feet high. The other hole is to push the water back up into the reservoir after we've screened off the fish. Then we have over 20,000 acres of lands that we manage just for wildlife habitat. We plant elk forage fields. We put up bat boxes and bluebird boxes. A lot of lands that we manage across 5 different counties. Then whenever you build a dam, you have a reservoir, and on the reservoir you have a lot of shoreline, and you have a bunch of recreation needs. And so we have about 150 miles of shoreline that we manage in 5 counties, and we have 4 campground parks. One of them we gave away a couple of nights yesterday at Tidenapaw Park at the east end of Rife Lake, Mossy Rock Park, which is on the west end of Rife Lake, Mayfield Lake Park on Lake Mayfield, and Alder Lake Park on Lake Alder. And then energy conservation is a big thing at Tacoma Power. Our load growth is pretty much flat, and a lot of that is due to the conservation efforts we put in over the last many years. Been reinforced by I-937, which has a requirement to put in all cost-effective conservation. And we've spent about $60 million in the last 4 years on conservation efforts. Centers of Excellence, what do? They are the link between business, industry, labor, and the state's education system. And how many of them are there, Barbara? 10 Centers of Excellence. Energy and construction being 2 of the key ones. And they serve as this statewide resource, or Barbara considers herself the air traffic controller for energy within Washington State. And as a result of, well, I'll talk about that in a second. As a result of some of the grants, it's beyond Washington State. And they really are a critical component to sustaining this, hopefully, vibrant economy that we have in Washington State. And then all of the Centers of Excellence have advisory boards, and I just happen to be the chair of the advisory board for Centralia. And these are permanent boards that provide advice to the center's director and instructors. I saw Rulon in here, to give them the perspective from industry. And we help the center achieve its mission by ensuring that the programs and projects advance the needs of the sector for which we are responsible, in this case, the energy sector. Here's the current board members that we have, and it includes both industry and labor. Hopefully Jim Gunther will be back to be on there. Bob Gunther. Jim is his son. Yeah, too many Gunthers. And then we've got some educational partners with some of the colleges that Centralia partners with, and then a couple of ex officio members. So I started on the board actually before, I say at the CEO's inception in 2004, but it was before it became a Center of Excellence. It was just an advisory board for the energy program at Centralia. And then in 2007, I was asked to chair the board, and me and Barbara have had this relationship going on for 9 years now. It's a long time. And over that time, we've acquired over $30 million in grants, and those grants have been, we've had the Wired grant, the Smart Grid grant, and now the TACT, or the WISE grant, as it's better called. And these have included partners from a multi-state region, multi-county region, many different utilities and colleges, and we've got a lot of great outputs from it. We did labor market studies. A couple of the outputs are labor market studies that we did in 2009. Everybody said we got this huge retirement wave, and then happened the recession, and that retirement wave slowed up. So we did refresh that study in 2013. And it said, now it's really coming, and believe me, it's really coming. We are having them walk out the door at Tacoma Power like crazy. We also got a bunch of skill standards out of it, which have been very useful. We've had electrician, mechanic, hydro operators. We did a conservation one, customer service one, and Troy is just talking about doing another one for dispatchers, so that'll be great. And right now we're working on a new hydro curriculum. It's been, I'd say the Center of Excellence for Energy really started and was put in Centralia because of the TransAlta plant, the steam plant. And so Rulon's been faithfully teaching steam classes for all these years. And once we changed to clean energy, said, hey, maybe we should change up the curriculum a little bit too. So we're doing that to align with the hydro needs. So some of the fruits of the grants, this is the workforce report and some of the skill standards that we've done. But really the most fruit for me has been these folks. So met Sarah yesterday, she was here. She works in our conservation group at Tacoma Power. Jake Kinsman's been at Nisqually Project for about 5 years now, and we just hired Chad Taylor. These are all graduates from the Centralia program that are now working for Tacoma Power. That's the best fruit for me.
Thanks, Pat. We could not do this without our advisory board, so that's just, we continue to put them on, and their role is to lead the Centers of Excellence, industry, labor, education partners. And then our role is to feed the colleges. So what Pat just said was Puget Sound Energy gave me the nickname of Barbara as the air traffic controller for energy workforce development in Washington State. So that's what I do. So Shana plays that role for construction. Mary Kay plays that role for aerospace and advanced manufacturing. And there are 7 more of us, which I always say I know that's scary, but that's what we do. So this is your day. So notice that the group is much smaller, and it always is, and that's on purpose. Some people drifted off. The important people came in that weren't here yesterday. He just stuck his tongue out at me. So, but we want to give you an opportunity to give us some feedback. So based on everything we did yesterday, and every year we try to shake it up and do something different, I have to say for me, yesterday was the most different than we've ever done. We've never really dug into policy. And how does then policy in the energy sector affect our workforce? So starting at the national level, the bill that Senator Cantwell and Murkowski are sponsoring, we are so excited about it. Assuming the House doesn't mess it up, we're in. Because there's a huge workforce component. That's why we care about that bill. That's a lot about infrastructure, and the first infrastructure bill since 2007. But if this flies through at a national level, there will be a lot of interest in what's going on in the workforce across the country for the energy sector. So stop and think about that. Shana, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say, we're going to ask that you guys kind of talk among your tables for a few minutes and what you got from yesterday, and then report that back out to the group. But one of the things that I really picked up on is how fast things are changing. And when we got to the discussions around the technology and the built environment energy efficiency, it is apparent that it's the essential skills that keep growing, and how we need to focus on that. How do we focus on getting people to understand not just the critical thinking and troubleshooting, when they were saying that it's so many different systems and all these different kinds of buildings, you're not going to really teach to a specific, branded piece of equipment. But we really need to impress upon the workforce this constant need to be upgrading your skills and be lifelong learners. And we're already struggling with how to teach them how to get there on time and be, show up for work and have good communication skills. So it really looks like the list of the soft or essential skills just keeps growing as we are in this environment of rapid change and upgrade. So that was one of my takeaways. We really want to encourage you to have some dialogue and then report back to the group. So we'll give you 5-10 minutes to talk amongst yourselves.
Good. So James was just here. James Bradshaw, where did he go? Did he just step out? Did he just step out? Because I always love to quote. I've been, I think, in every classroom, energy classroom, in the 20 colleges in the state of Washington that have energy programs. I love James' classroom. On the board, he's got, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, you're fired. That's what the students come in and see every single day. So that's the message that we want to send to them. So talk among yourselves, and we're going to have you report out. Good conversation. You hear a lot of buzzing. Who had just a killer conversation about what happened yesterday, what your interests were, what you learned from it, what you missed? What did we miss? And we're okay with that. We want feedback. Well, we're okay with it to a degree. Anyway, who had some good conversation? I was just going to say Todd. Then he's going to say, oh, crap. Okay. All right. All right. Because Todd asks questions that he knows the answer to. That's why Todd's so good.
Thank you for being here, Todd. He's been a great resource for our conversation. I don't know what you guys want me to talk about. I guess most recent conversation we just had is how a curiosity I had and we have as electricians and contractors and in the labor side is how this new, if we move to a distributed generation system, who and how is this system going to be built? Is it going to be built in-house by the utility companies, through contracted labor, just what that looks like ultimately to us? The conversation yesterday was at a very high level policy, and obviously we're the guys that do the install work and build these systems, guys and gals. So most, I guess, important or pertinent for us is what that impact looks like for us.
Excellent. Anybody else at the table have any more to add to that? Todd, do you want to ask a question?
So, team members, what specifically was yesterday helpful in setting up some of those questions and thoughts for you, or did you find it great fun, but now I got to get back to my day job?
Jim, you're on a roll. Go for it.
I think we all found it inspiring and encouraging. To me, looking ahead at our future as electricians, I think we have a very bright, inspiring, and a challenging future ahead of us. So, optimistically, that's, I think, our perspective. I think it's going to be it's a new era. It's similar to maybe what happened in Tesla and Edison's age is happening now for us.
So so you said, I like your encouraging word. So what in particular makes you feel like that?
I think new and interesting job and employment opportunities in the electrical field.
All right, next table. Cindy, you want to go? All right. Okay, Jeremy. Jeremy's right. Okay.
So the legislative impact as far from a tribal viewpoint and the interaction between the tribes and the legislature on these issues. And in particular, he mentioned that they have a tribal pilot project with Pacific Northwest PNWR, is that how? Pacific
PNWR.
Northwest Economic Region. You're looking at it? Okay. Another point was the importance of energy efficiency and reducing cost. Yesterday's talks reinforced the connection between energy and construction and the impact one has on another, even from a legislative viewpoint. Did I miss anything?
One thing that I was curious about was, and I'm really bad with names, the first gentleman, I guess he's the president of Bates, when he was referring to Minnesota and the closure of the centers of excellence. I live on Lake of the Woods, which is 15 minutes north of Baudette, Minnesota. So I work with the legislature there very closely, and I know this is the first year in probably 10 years that they have a $1.4 billion budget surplus. So I couldn't hear him exactly as to what the reason was for those closures. I shot off emails to several of my friends there that are state reps to kind of get clarification. But for me, that was really interesting to try to understand. And I know Washington is a leader in a lot of aspects, especially when it comes to interaction with the tribes and stuff. But why is Minnesota closing these?
I can answer that.
Important. Okay, excellent.
I can answer that. So from the Washington perspective, Washington State is the only state in the country that codified their centers of excellence early on in 2007. And the Washington State Labor Council was behind that. IBEW was behind that. Our utility partners were behind that. The building and construction trades were behind that because they could see that. If this is just left up to the education leaders or just sort of willy-nilly out there, and this is not created in state statute, they could overturn them at any given moment. So because we had leaders that had that foresight in 2007 in Washington State, and we're really proud of that, but it's also given us legs all the way along. And the centers for Washington State have grown, have morphed. We're very different than what we thought we would be in 2005, but it's worked. And we are leading the country. Pardon? Both. But it's all about being in state statute. So that, and you saw the legislative support from the federal level we have yesterday, and at the state level. I don't know if you met Senator Marilyn Chase, but she's one of the leaders at the state level that's kept us there. So that's why we forget sometimes in education how important that public policy is. And that's why we were trying to ring to you yesterday that energy is on the forefront from the federal, from the region, and then bring it home to Washington State. So does that answer your question? Yeah, all right, sure. Okay. All right, another table? Allison. Okay, who's going to do it? All right. Okay.
Well, my takeaway is a former student of the program and a prospective entrepreneur, Centralia program,
right.
A student at Centralia College, the energy program, with Rulon as my instructor. I've set off on starting a business that meets some of these goals and trying to connect the dots, and the collaborative word really keeps coming back up, and it's a partnership. It's working with multiple entities that each have a vision of their own. But how do you kind of blend them all together to make this wonderful collage that serves the students that you're sending out prepared for these career fields? And how do we bridge that gap between graduation and employment and keep those skills operating so that when they're ready to apply for that job, there's not that void in their resume that says, I went out and survived while I was trying to get your job, and my skills diminished a little bit. Skill sets are changing from the retirement age to what is this new innovation of transportation, energy, collaboration, community energy. The energy picture is huge. So listening to all this is just encouraging for me as a startup that's been really putting my heart and soul into this thing, that there's a workforce that's ready, and there's industry that's waiting, and there's products that are coming out that everybody needs to just kind of, how do we get the rural communities? How do we get the metropolitan, the rural communities, and support each other so that we have this great Washington picture? I love the fact that Boeing is here, because I see energy as synonymous as, when you see a Boeing plane go overhead, I think that's the same vision that anybody should have when they look at Washington State and their energy picture. So, yeah.
I love that. See, that's how center directors are known. So she's known as Boeing now. I love that. I love that. She does. She's got a Boeing badge. All right. Who else?
A couple of things that we talked about here that really struck home with me was the first afternoon session about governmental policy. I think it was Colleen McAleer, who was on the Port Commissioner, saw things that were not seen by me by others. The proverbial taking a pig's ear and turning it into a silk purse, finding out something that was normally being thrown away at a cost and turning it into an industry. I thought that so we're fortunate in wherever it happens to have people in problem-solving positions of influence and can direct policy who can see outside the box and not just say, here's the answer that's always worked, so we're going to try this again. And the other thing is that I think her and others on the committee said that for people who may have an issue or problem, we can't wait for them to come to us. We have to go to them and identify the problem before we come up with a solution that doesn't necessarily fit their problem. And so I thought that was excellent. We can't solve a problem at a distance. We have to understand what the problem is, and we need to go to people and understand where they are, because they're busy running businesses, making a livelihood. So I thought Colleen especially, that was really encouraging to me.
Good. Okay, how about back here? How about my team? What's your takeaway?
we talked about the soft skills, that's going to be one of the most important things when we're turning these students out, is the soft skills. We can teach them and, mandate that they wear their shirts to school every day and they wear their work boots and all of that stuff, but are they going to carry those soft skills over into their employment? That's a big thing that we hope that we're conveying to them, that they need to be doing that and showing up on time and all of that. So that was what we were talking about.
Great. Anybody else? Anything to add? Who have we missed? We haven't. Oh, right. Okay, Anthony, you got something to add? All right. Okay, Alice is raising her hand here.
The policy, I really enjoyed. If this was something new this time, I think focusing on that, it's really important right now, because obviously policy impacts and the mandates that are coming down and hitting utilities. We're kind of moving forward in areas that we don't know necessarily where we're going to go, and so whether we're going to lead or whether we're going to hang back and watch what's happening with California and how that's going to impact the Western utilities. I'm really excited about that, because it kind of puts some why into what's happening. And then also there was a panel that I thought was really good that brought it down to a tangible level for me, and that was the one that they were talking about good thoughts. Good practices, actually good thoughts or good ideas. I thought that was interesting, but each panel member actually provided us a tangible example of a good thought and a good practice that each of their organizations have been moving forward with and that we're successful in. On the flip side, they also provided information about a bad thought. Or not necessarily a bad thought, but a good thought that just that wasn't sustainable. And I think that was a nice twist that was put, because we do find that very often, is that the grants that we get funded with that are short term, how do we sustain them and carry them on? So that doesn't necessarily mean that they were a bad thought. It just means that we don't have the funding to keep them going. So.
Good. Excellent. Okay, good. This table, I think, hasn't. Okay.
I'm Rick Johnson from Columbia Basin College, and I teach the project management program down there. And I came just to learn more about construction, because the Tri-Cities area is just booming with construction, and was approached by the Construction Council and asked, this was about a week ago, asked for us to pipeline some of our project management majors, because we have a BAS program down there, and into internships and ultimately for hire. My purpose was to meet with faculty from Renton Technical College, who offer a construction program, and I've also now learned that Pierce has a viable one as well. So I came down here for construction. I've come away with energy, more of awareness, and in fact, in the Penware briefing yesterday, I mentioned PNNL, the Pacific Northwest. We have meetings with them at their request yesterday, or next Friday, because they want to pipeline students. Since now I'm aware that they're involved in this, so that'll help in the conversation. But as far as takeaways, John, yesterday, when he talked about the local labor hires and the zip codes, I thought that was pretty neat, so I made a note of that. And then the other thing I personally took away, we didn't really talk much because I owned the conversation about the curriculum. I apologize. But the other thing I was really appreciative of, just being new to this, because I moved back to the Pacific Northwest after about 30 years, is the EEA, the Education, the Energy Educators Association Alliance. Getting that, I didn't know it was somewhat dormant, but apparently we're trying to revitalize it. And I want to stay engaged in it, even though that's not my wheelhouse. But I just appreciated getting the input. And so for us, me, and maybe both of us, networking is more the thing.
Good, excellent. I wasn't in part of that meeting, so you did meet the EEA? Do you want to say a couple words about that in case there was somebody that didn't go? Thank you, because we're trying to revive that. What he means by EE is the Energy Educators Association. It was going very strong when Allison was leading an NSF grant when she was at Edmonds, and after Allison left Edmonds, it sort of fell apart. So we need Allison back. She's now at South. This is how these people rotate. Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. So we were an organization that was the result of an NSF grant at the end of 2011. The group first started getting together, and we went strong for about 3 years and then sort of tapered off. So we're just trying to get together again. It's Energy Educators Association, but you don't have to just teach energy. It's pretty much anybody who's interested in energy, construction, sustainability, things like that, project management, yes. because our students definitely need those skills too. So it's really faculty, but it could be also, we've had folks from training JATC folks before. Yesterday was mostly faculty. We had I don't know how many people do we have in the room? 8, 9 people in the room. Okay. So that was nice. So we're gonna Gail, Alexander, and I are gonna reach out to the group to do some more formalized planning for some activities next year. So see me if you're interested and you weren't able to go yesterday.
Good. Thanks for kickstarting that again. That was really strong when we had our Smart Grid grant. We had 5 states going. There was one meeting that had 50 people. So I know there's the interest there. It's like everything. I think it's time and somebody to lead the charge. So thanks for doing that. So we're thinking about next year. We're always planning a year ahead. And we've had a few ideas. Anybody have anything that they really would like to see or hear or do or be different next year? Okay, think about that for a while. Get back to us. Either Shane or I, we can, we're always looking for new ideas. How many of you here, here's one idea. How many of you here are interested in apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship? How many of you are working that world? Okay, so that's sort of what we're thinking, and Shana can talk a little bit more. Several of the center directors are in Portland next week at the Pacific Northwest Apprenticeship Conference. So we're thinking about potentially just really bringing back a real focus on apprenticeship from 3 different industries. And that ties back to our WISE grant, which is energy, construction, and advanced manufacturing. So that's one thought. So if you have any interest in pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship, or what we could do differently, where you would like to see that happen. South's been mentioned. So to move the venue, we didn't move it again this year because we didn't want it to look like a circus that we're moving it every year.
So along those same lines, Barbara, paid internships, working with our industry partners. So some type of work-based learning. If you're not in an apprenticeship program, how can we get our students into work-based programs, paid internships? So I think our state as a whole, we can look to other states that are really implementing this. So maybe bringing forward best practices around work-based learning, paid experience.
Good. Okay. So think about that. And as you're going to conferences or talking to people over the next few months, and you hear a really good speaker or a really good panel, let us know. That's how we find our speakers. We hunt them down all year long. Literally. We booked Matt Morrison in Calgary last July for yesterday. So that's how far we try to think ahead. So think about that as you, when Colleen switched to the Business Alliance, she called us, can I be part of a panel? Yeah, sure. Come on in. So I love that we have people coming to us and that we're booking that far ahead now and thinking that far out.